afternoon, Senate Chair Burns and House Chair Hobbins and honorable members of this committee. My name, as you know, is Jeff Moskowitz, and I thank you very much for the opportunity you've given me to speak regarding my renomination by Governor McKay to continue serving as a district court judge. I'm very grateful for the renomination. I'm grateful for the Governor's Committee's review of my case and presentation of myself. Now, I know that you've had an opportunity to review my resume and my personal information, so I won't dwell on that information in my statement to you. But I'd like to briefly let you know about the duties I've had a chance to undertake for the past 7 years as a district court judge. I've been fortunate to work in 12 of the 29 district court locations, including York, Springvale, Biddeford, Bridgeton, West Bath, Lewiston, Farmington, Waterville, Augusta, Bangor, Newport, and Portland, where I spend the majority of my time. I work on nearly all of the wide variety of cases for which the district court has jurisdiction. I've also been very fortunate to work in the Cumberland County Unified Criminal Docket Court since its inception. My primary interest is in the criminal law, and I'm lucky to work in criminal cases from the arraignment process through to the jury trial process in that court. I've also been privileged to participate in the Cumberland County Adult Drug Treatment Court for the past few years, and that has been an incredibly rewarding experience for me. I'm very proud to work with a wonderful team of dedicated professionals who work very hard to positively influence people who struggle with substance addiction. About 1 year ago, I was honored when I was asked to serve as Chief Judge of the Verdict Deputy. Although my contributions in that job are very small, I have greatly enjoyed the leadership duties very much. I'd like to tell you a small bit about who I am. Like all people, I make my fair share of mistakes. Some of the mistakes are somewhat minor, and some of them are not. For example, you're all aware of the mistake I made earlier this year when I ordered the media to refrain from reporting the specifics of an alleged victim's testimony in a criminal case. It was an order that I issued at the end of a very long day, and it was a clear error. Fortunately, I had the opportunity on my own to correct that error very shortly after it was made and before any significant harm was done. And I sincerely regretted making that mistake. However, as with all the mistakes that I make, I have viewed that as a clear opportunity to learn and to improve, and I've learned a valuable lesson from the experience. I feel very lucky to work in a job where the work product, meaning the trial court action, is regularly and systematically monitored and reviewed so that mistakes can be addressed and they can be remedied. This is important because many of the trial court's decisions affect people's lives, sometimes profoundly. Other important jobs affecting people's lives, for example, a teacher or an accountant or a brain surgeon, don't feature this built-in corrective mechanism. I try very hard to make the right decision in every case based on the evidence that's presented at trial. Despite that, not surprisingly, it's also quite possible that on one side, and sometimes both sides, they'll disagree with the decision I've made. Our court system provides wonderful checks and balances such that if a party disagrees with a decision of a trial judge in any case, they have the right to appeal the decision to the main Supreme Judicial Court. That court, made up of 7 judges, has a transcript of the hearing that the judge conducted. They review the transcript to assess whether the findings that the trial judge made are consistent with the evidence that was presented, and they examine whether the trial judge properly applied the law. If the trial judge makes a mistake, the Supreme Court sets the trial decision aside and sends the case back to the trial court for retrial. While the volume of cases that trial judges handle is great, the appeal process is an important part of making sure that people's rights are protected, and it's an important part of making sure that people feel that their rights are protected. I'd like to explain generally what I do as a judge. The job is both simple and difficult. The basic task is essentially twofold and generally simple. The first part of the task requires fact-finding. If I'm hearing a bench trial, I'm required to fairly and impartially find facts based on the evidence that's presented at trial. If I'm conducting a jury trial, I'm required to facilitate fair fact-finding by a jury based upon the evidence that's presented. The The second part of the task requires the application of the law. If I'm hearing a bench trial, I must apply the facts that I find faithfully to the laws that you, the legislature, promulgate. I must be faithful to the law that you direct me to apply. If I'm conducting a jury trial, I must do my best to ensure that the jury faithfully applies the law that you promulgate to the facts that the jury finds. In short, the basic task is simple. I must obey my constitutional oath, and I take that oath very, very seriously. Although the basic task of a judge is simple, the execution of the task can be quite difficult. First, the law can be complex and sometimes contradictory. Second, often and sometimes on a daily basis, a judge must make a decision that might affect a litigant in a gut-wrenching way, and the decision might be received quite badly because it's very painful to receive. The process of fact-finding can be challenging and emotional, and sometimes even heartbreaking. This is especially true in some family cases because of the very raw, very human, and very powerful emotions that the parties are understandably dealing with. When I first began my duties as a judge, then Supreme Court Justice Levy asked me to participate on a panel at a family law conference in York County, where I had just spent 21 years serving as a prosecutor. During the panel discussion, one of the attorneys in the audience asked me if I had experienced any surprises as a new judge. And I appreciated that question very, very much. And I was very glad to answer it because I had, in fact, certainly experienced a complete surprise in my new job. When I worked as a prosecutor, I worked with and was sometimes witness to some of the worst human behavior and cruelty that one can imagine. After some time, I was able to prevent the subject matter at work from affecting the rest of my life. I was able to essentially leave work at work. I assumed wrongly that as a judge, I'd be able to continue to leave work at work. However, as with my former job, I was very surprised to find that it took some time to be able to deal with the emotional toll that family cases in particular can have, primarily on the litigants, but also secondarily on the judge. Family cases involve the legal end to the most important, most meaningful relationship a human being can have. And it also means the logistical and emotional changes in a parent-child relationship. These cases require the court to apply the standard of the child's best interest, set out in statute. By and large, they involve nice people placed in extraordinarily difficult, soul-stirring, and emotional circumstances. As another human being, it is difficult to watch that process take place right before your eyes. I've found that particularly in many family cases, it takes a great deal of strength and courage to impartially and fairly decide the facts, and then to faithfully apply the law, the child's best interest, to those facts, because the result can cause enormous pain and enormous anger for another human being. Causing pain is a very difficult thing to do. While I'm sorry that some of my decisions that I've made have caused someone pain, respectfully, I am certain that in each of those decisions I have carefully considered the evidence and I faithfully applied the law. I can only do my very best to be fair to both parties involved. While I do not believe it would be appropriate for me to comment on any individual case that I've handled over the past 7 years, I can assure this committee that my decisions were made after significant and careful thought, and that they were made with a clear understanding of my solemn obligation to decide every case based on the law. Like all of my colleagues, I can't promise that I will be mistake-free in performing my duties. However, what I can promise is that I will always try my absolute best to make appropriate decisions and to do my very best to be faithful to the law. Every day, literally every day, I understand just how lucky I am to do this vital, important, and sensitive work. I'm honored to have had the chance to do it, and I would very much like to continue with my service. And now I'd be very happy to attempt to answer any questions any of the committee members may have.
Thank you, Dan Moskowitz. The chair will ask if any committee member have any questions. Seeing none, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Senator.